Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining the webinar this morning. Today we're going to be talking about the TP-Link Aginet TAUC system, which is our management platform, but also some of the other solutions as well, included in the Aginet portfolio, and also just give a little bit of a chat on Wi-Fi 7. For a very high level, nothing too technical, but more a case of where Wi-Fi 7 is being used, how it's being used, and the advantages of Wi-Fi 7. So without further ado, I will get into the slides. A couple just at the start with just a bit of corporate info for those of you who don't know, so we'll step into that straight away. So TP-Link, we've been around since 1996, so been around a fair few years now, and we're actually our headquarters is in Irvine in the US, just outside Los Angeles. We've got branches globally. We're offices and running smaller remote offices in up to 42 branches around the globe, and over 170 countries using our technologies. So we're pretty well spread around the globe, as you can see. We've got a few different business lines within the TP-Link portfolio. Mentioned there, TAUC, CASA, Armada, Aginet, VG, but I will cover off those on the coming slides. So, as I mentioned, we're separated or at least lined up into 4 different business areas, and some of you will be familiar with some of these, some of you will be familiar with all of them. But looking at the consumer networking product set, you will see these Deco and Archer products that are based or sold through the likes of Amazon or Currys or those sort of people. You'll find them online or in retail environments, and anybody can go and buy those, for home use. Then on the right hand side here, we've got the CASA and TAUC range. That's our smart home portfolio, so cameras and smart plugs, bulbs, sensors, all that sort of thing for you to be able to set up in your home. And again, those can be purchased either retail type environments, but we also do sell those through to our ISP customers as well. Then on the left hand bottom side here, you've got the Armada and VG range, and there are enterprise and B2B product sets. So anything from business type routers, multiple WAN connections and VPN servers, that sort of thing, captive portals, through to network switches, and managed Wi-Fi environments for things like schools or shopping malls or that sort of thing. That's the Armada range, and then the VG range is the professional IP-CCTV type product set, so surveillance cameras and things like that. And then lastly, and what we're going to be talking more so about today, is the service provider range, which is our Aginet portfolio. And so these are products that are specifically designed and put together for the ISP marketplace. They use a lot of the technologies from these other business lines, and we're drawing on our experience in the consumer market there, specifically when it comes down to the ISP router for the home user customers. And we within the Aginet products, we include some additional softwares for management and things like that. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in the first instance. So the full Aginet solution, the whole portfolio, it's not just a set of hardware products that you see down here, which of course they certainly have those in them, Wi-Fi routers and mesh systems and 4G routers, etc. So we've got a very wide portfolio of physical hardware products, but it's also a set of software platforms as well. The main one that we'll be talking about today is the top one here, which is Aginet TAUC. and that is a TR369 management solution. And what that enables is the ability to not just manage the router device itself, but also go further into the home and start managing the mesh system, the mesh access points, and also to be able to see the client devices that are being used within that network, and to understand really what's happening in the customer's Wi-Fi network. And we'll talk about that. I'll expand on that a little bit further and explain the importance of that and what that can actually help with. But as you can see, a lot of other features and capabilities within the TAUC system, like zero touch deployment and provisioning. We've got APIs on there, so to hook into other systems and back-end office systems and that sort of thing. And actually some of the other interesting parts, again, I'll expand on this, our VAS service, our value add services for the TAUC platform. And they offer some very interesting, unique, and certainly what we would believe to be important tools, which enable the ISP to be able to manage their customer and their customer's expectation and experience. Then alongside the TAUC platform, we do have some other platforms there. We have what we call Aginet ACS. That's a traditional TR69 management system, which of course managed the router itself, the first product or the first device into the home. So we have that. We also have the Aginet config, which is a configuration tool, a mass deployment tool. Enables you to do bulk firmware updates, but bulk configurations as well. So if you are wanting to send a device out to a customer or customers with a pre-configuration for your requirements, maybe your SSID, your ACS URLs, your setup, how you want it to work, that can be pre-provisioned, pre-configured into the device before shipping out using the Aginet config tool. And the interesting part about that, and the useful part about that, is that when you use the Aginet config tool to do that, the configuration you upload into the device becomes the default configuration. So we all know customers love to press the reset button on the back of the routers just for fun, they seem. And of course that causes us all sorts of problems as ISPs, because we can end up with the factory default settings taking the router offline because it doesn't connect back to the ACS any further, and some of the other configuration parameters don't work. Maybe it doesn't even come back online at all, and then you've got a stranded device out there in the network. The customer can't get back online. Customers calling you saying, "Oh, there's a problem with my router," and it's actually because they've had fidgety fingers and pressed the reset button. So at least with the Aginet config tool, using that to create your config, it avoids that situation. And then lastly, in the middle there, we've got the Aginet app. That's the app for the user, for the customer themselves. So they have the ability to do a certain level of monitoring and management or view of their home network, what it's doing, do some setup, parental control type things, QoS, that sort of thing, but also see what's actually happening, what's connected, and the state of the connections in their Wi-Fi environment, and how good that connection is. So let's talk a little bit further about the TAUC system. So the TAUC itself, as I say, is using the latest TR369 protocols. And what this allows, as I mentioned, is for you to be able to, as an ISP, to have a better view of what's going on in the customer's premises, so on their Wi-Fi network. Yes, it still does all the traditional management that you would generally require for configuration, firmware updates, and such as that, those sort of things, zero touch provisioning, all those sort of things. That's all still inherent within there. But with the 369 and the TAUC, being able to see what is happening on the Wi-Fi gives you a greater control and greater ability to provide your customers with a fantastic experience, and also enables you from an ISP to ensure that you're able to resolve any issues that a customer may ring up with, and more importantly, as stated on here, a first call fix. And we'll talk about that in a short while. But the sort of things you can do, we all know our lovely customers out there, they'll be calling you to tell you that they've got a problem with their Wi-Fi. Because maybe they're watching a UView or a video stream or something like that on either a phone or a tablet, and they're sitting somewhere in the house, who knows where at the time, and they call you up and say, I've got problems, it's blocking, it's buffering, it's not working, the experience is no good, my Wi-Fi is rubbish. And then when your customer service agent starts to investigate that, you then find out that actually the customer's talking about something that happened 4 days ago. And so now you're on the back foot if you haven't got a system like TAUC. Because what TAUC can do and has the ability to do is store historical data. So you can look back into that customer's history to have a look and see what was happening 4 days ago. You can speak to the customer and say, okay, what device were you using? You can look up that device and you can see at the particular time on the particular day what the connection quality was like for that particular device. Now, that obviously tells your customer support agent a lot. It gives them a lot of information. It may be showing that there was a lot of interference at that time for some reason, and that can then be investigated further. It may be that the quality of the connection, the dB levels were very poor, or there's various different things. The efficiency of the Wi-Fi connection was not good, and that may be because the customer themselves are sitting either too far away from the access point, or maybe they've got the access point positioned in the wrong place or doing the wrong thing. And so that, again, that enables your customer service agent to be able to really help that customer and sort out and resolve the problem. And 9 times out of 10, you find that actually that customer is sitting miles away from where their nearest access points are, and they're wondering why they haven't got a good Wi-Fi connection. And you're able to see that and work with the customer to either, obviously, sensibly, I guess, get them to sit in a better place, closer to the access point, but more so, maybe from a business perspective, it enables you to upsell them and maybe get another access point in it to ensure that they've got full coverage around their home with the speed they actually need. So, as I mentioned, looking at some of the other features here, and I mentioned the VAS services, and that's what kind of sits into here. And probably one of the most important ones here is the Ofcom compliance speed test. Now, what we mean by that, as I've mentioned, we've got historical capability, so we can store speed tests. Obviously, all speed tests are done directly from the WAN port, so you're not impacting the actual speed results you get from looking at including the Wi-Fi in any test. You're testing specifically and directly out on the WAN port. What you're able to do there is it has a scheduler built within TAUC, so you can schedule times of day, different days, which is a requirement from Ofcom for you ISPs now, where they can be coming to you. Ofcom can come to you and say, okay, Mr. ISP, you are stating you're providing this speed of service, whatever that may be, prove it. Show us that you're actually delivering on that service. And so the Aginet TAUC system, with its ability to run that speed test in a scheduled environment and then collect and store the history of that, you're able to create a report from that and be able to show Ofcom and say, yep, here's the speed result at this time of day, that time of day, this day, that day, over this period of time, over the last 7 days or however long you may look back on. And that, of course, is a huge and important tool for you guys as ISPs. So the other part here is this first call fix that I mentioned. Now, we were talking just now about another customer who calls up and says, I've got a problem, and comes up with all sorts of weird and wonderful thoughts as to the reason why he's not getting the Wi-Fi that he wants. Now, the important thing is for your customer service agent to be able to fix that on a first call. That price of £37, as you can see on this slide, that's an industry kind of average standard. Some calls will cost more, some will cost less. That's an operational cost for you as an ISP. Obviously, it includes the time for the customer service agent. It includes his, seating him at his station. It includes everything around that. But nevertheless, £37 is quite a significant cost. So stands to reason you want to be able to fix your customer on the first time he calls in. The last thing you want is 2, 3, 4 calls, each costing £37. That's a major impact on your bottom line, on your operational costs. And so, yeah, not something you want to be doing. Normally, the average number of calls to fix is 3. But with TAUC, the idea is to pull that down to just first call fix. Not only does that save money, of course, as it also increases the customer experience. They're not having to make multiple calls. They're getting back online or getting the service they want straight away. They feel, if you're giving them the information about what may be causing the problem and a solution to that, all of those things increase the customer satisfaction and the customer experience, which is always good for you guys as an ISP. Also, of course, what it does remove, because the first call fix is you're not having to look at potentially swapping out a product when the product is working perfectly okay, but you can't really tell because you haven't been able to analyze that and test that. But with the TAUC system, you can. And so you know that the product either is faulty, and so it is a cost, or more likely it's not faulty, it's just the way it's being used or it's configured or in the position it's in. And so saves you having to send another device out. It can cost you obviously more money, and also not having to send an engineer out, which again reduces costs. So the TAUC system is all about doing that for you. So just a little bit more detail, and don't be scared of this screen. This is just a presentation slide. This wouldn't be a normal screen that you would get on the TAUC system. This is screenshots from multiple screens on the top put onto one slide to be able to present to you. So you can see there's quite a lot of information, and this is not all of it. This is just some, primarily some important Wi-Fi and speed test type of stats and testing and feedback that you can get. But the important one here is this one in the middle, because all of these can feed in to this, as we call it there, the total health score. And what that's all about is you can set for each of these things around here, as you can see, they're all labeled around here. You can set thresholds. And that threshold might be a speed test, that you don't, if it drops below a certain speed when you run a speed test, that should raise an alert. If your Wi-Fi signal or channel or interference or the stability or the roaming of a client, if any of those drop below a certain threshold that you can set for your customers, then an alert can be raised to the customer service agent to let them know there's an issue with that customer. Now, all of that may actually happen. Then maybe an alert comes in before the customer even knows they've got a problem. And so you're in a position as an ISP, depending on which way you want to do it, you can resolve that and then call the customer and basically say, how good are we as an ISP? We saw you had a problem, we fixed it before you even knew it. Or you just fix it and keep the customer happy, and then you don't receive any calls coming in. So two different ways of approaching it, but certainly having that health score, your customer service agent can look at a customer. Obviously, if a customer calls in, you can look at this at that time, that instant. You can run those tests and get that health score and understand which element of the network may be causing the issue. And so the customer service agent can focus in on that. So as you can see, once set up, the customer service agent doesn't have to be a network specialist with quite a limited set of training and information. They can very easily see where the problem is, and the TAUC system is also AI driven, in as much as it can start making suggestions, popping up panels with information for the customer service agent to suggest what may be potential issues and what possible resolutions there may be. For example, it may come up and say, to check with the customer that they are close enough to an access, the AP, the access point, or maybe it wants to be moved, or maybe they need another access point, and it starts to help the customer service agent like that. So as you can see, a really powerful tool, and one that is, in our view, invaluable for the ISPs to be able to provide that service, get the customer service, the customer experience up. And their expectations, make sure they're happy, but also keep your kind of costs down and not have to spend out too much money on supporting customers. Lastly, another part of TAUC, and it's something that not many management systems do, and it's certainly something we've pulled into here, is the use of 5G CPEs or even mobile CPEs is becoming more and more. Yes, fiber's being deployed everywhere. We understand that, but there are some holes and some pockets which need mobile deployment, mobile CPEs to be able to provide the bandwidth speeds that are actually required from the customers. And so what we've also got included within the TAUC system is the management of a 5G WAN router. And so there's obviously some different WAN configurations and capabilities and monitoring ability that you need to do for the 5G world. And they're all listed down here, and they're actually what you can do and understand what's going on in a network and set up, configure and monitor to make sure the WAN speed on the 5G is achieving what your customer requires. And then moving on to the app, the Aginet app. This is a free downloadable app from the either Play Store or App Store, and the user can run this app for their Aginet products and be able to see and monitor what's going on in their network. And you can see here just a very, very little small network map. If they had multiple access points, they would all be showing around here, either in a mesh or a star, whichever the configuration sets up. And then they're able to see, there's a little indicator here, one on each in this case, the devices that are actually the client devices, that is, that are connected onto their network, and you can see them listed here. Obviously, if there was more devices, you'd have a longer list down here, and you'd see how many are connected on each device. And you can also see here, there's a 5 gig label and also the Wi-Fi signal in green, which is suggesting here that this network, these two devices are connected together using the 5 gigahertz frequency, and because that's green, that's a good connection. So there is some self-help here for the customer as well. If that was amber or red, then of course that starts to suggest to the customer that maybe, just maybe, their APs are a little bit too far out of range. Amber's okay, red obviously isn't, and so they can start looking at moving that around themselves. So they can do some self-help themselves. And you also get the same on the list of devices. So you can see here that in this case again, this device is connected over Wi-Fi and it has a green Wi-Fi signal. So that was within good range of getting a good signal on the Wi-Fi network. And then likewise here, because that's a little squiggly line, that's the shows that it's actually connected physically using a cable, a LAN cable. So no red, amber, greens on that. Of course, that's just purely connecting to the router with a cable. And then you can see some of the other things you can do here. I mentioned before about doing quality of service and parental controls and being able to block little Johnny from going on the web when he's meant to be doing his homework or when it's bedtime. You can schedule that control of the internet access and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff that the user can actually do themselves. And then lastly, just one last comment on here. And which we think is quite a nice thing for you guys as ISPs. If you are running the TAUC system that I've just been talking about, and you also have your users using this app, what you can do is on the TAUC system, you can upload your logo, your ISP logo. And then any of the customers that are using this app, when they boot up the app, your logo would come up here as well. Doesn't change the colors or the framing or anything like that in the app, but it does put your logo front and center as soon as they go onto the app. So it kind of gives you a semi sort of branding-ish type of view, which is a really nice thing for you guys, and certainly keeps, as I say, your name front and center for your customers. So let's talk a little bit about Wi-Fi 7. What I should say is, one I should have said at the start, I apologise I didn't. We do have some people online here from TP-Link, some technical people, that if any of you've got any questions whilst I'm going through anything here, if you want to drop them into the chat, please do, and they will try to answer you during this actual webinar to save you having to wait for the end. But we will have a quick roundup at the end of any questions if anybody's got anything. So moving on to Wi-Fi 7. So Wi-Fi 7, and again, this is a high level, so don't worry about getting too technical. I won't be doing that. But here's kind of like a list of everything that is being added in and changed or improved or whatever on Wi-Fi 7, and it's quite a list of information there. But what I wanted to do, because people tend to get hooked up on, oh, Wi-Fi 7, more speed, high speed. That's what it's about, speed, speed, speed. And that's not necessarily the case with Wi-Fi 7. Of course, it does that, but there's a lot of other things as well. So, yes, because we've now included an extra frequency in the 6 gigahertz on both Wi-Fi 6, but in Wi-Fi 6E, but more so in Wi-Fi 7 here. Yes, there's a potential for more speed because you've obviously got more channels, more frequencies that you can actually use, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. There's also more spatial streams, so more channels, up to 16 now with Wi-Fi 7. Of course, you've got to have the antenna array to be able to do that, but that doesn't necessarily offer more speed. I suppose it can do if you've got one client that can do 16 channels, which is very unlikely, because most devices like mobile phones and things like that are running 2 maximum. But what it does do is it offers the ability to have more clients simultaneously connected. Okay, now just clarifying that, and I will talk about it a bit more when we talk about simultaneously connected. Obviously, when you've got multiple devices in the home, they're all connected to the Wi-Fi. But when it comes down to transmitting data backwards and forwards in Wi-Fi 6, then it's more of a time slice. You get your little allocations of time. Whereas with Wi-Fi 7, you can do 16 actually transmitting backwards and forwards simultaneously if you've got that type of environment. So more connectivity, more things connected. MLO, and again, multi-link operation, I'll talk about that in a little while. But again, what that offers, it's not a case of more speed, although, in some scenarios it can. And again, I'll explain that in a little while. But it's more so about efficiency and reducing latency. And again, I'll explain how that works. Puncturing, same again, it's about efficiency and latency. QAM, yes, okay, the increase in the QAM is absolutely, it's 4 times greater modulation. So yes, that is absolutely one of the elements that enables Wi-Fi 7 to deliver more speed. Then looking at greater throughput with the channel, which we've already been talking about, bringing 6 gigahertz in, and that can run at 320 megahertz, so has greater, more channel width, and so stands to reason it's a bigger pipe, you can get more data down it. Yes, that gives more speed. And then lastly, the resource units and how you actually work with that. Again, that's about efficiency of the Wi-Fi and reducing latency. Now, of course, reducing latency, the amount of impact that can have for users, that can feel like it's faster. It may not be faster. It may be exactly the same data rate, but if there's lower latency and so the response times are faster, it feels faster, and so feels like it's more speed, but it's not. It's just literally working faster rather than more speed. So looking at some of these, just to, I mentioned some of them. I'm not going to cover off all of those because we'll be here all week. Looking at the channel, the bandwidth, the easiest way to explain that when you're going from 5 gigahertz to 6 gigahertz, if you think about a road, dual carriageway against a 4-lane motorway, stands to reason you can get more data down it because you've got more space. You get more cars down a 4-lane motorway than you do down a dual carriageway. So, bit of an odd analogy, but it's effective, I think. And you can see there with those 4 channels, you're obviously going to get more speed along there, and that's the advantage of Wi-Fi 7 with the 320 megahertz. We've already spoken about that, and actually the easiest way to explain that, the modulation, if you think of each of these points as a data modulation, a data bits. And so this is Wi-Fi 6, and as you can see, Wi-Fi 7, 4 times more. And in fact, if you just picked up this one Wi-Fi 6 QAM module here, that's the same as one there. So as you can see, 4 times faster, a lot more data modulation. So again, stands to reason, higher throughput in speed. Multi-link operation, I mentioned about this also earlier, and what this actually brings in, just to explain this a little bit further, multi-link operation enables in Wi-Fi 7 the ability to combine all of these channels to each other, as you can see on here. In Wi-Fi 6, you would use 2.4 or 5 or 6. In Wi-Fi 7, you can bond these together, 2.4 and 5, or 5 and 6, or 2.4 and 5 and 6, and get a lot more, basically a bigger pipe if you're combining all those together. Now, again, absolutely has the effect of more speed, but it also provides you with redundancy and aggregation gives that throughput. And also because you are able then to dynamically select the frequency channel that you're actually running on and switch very quickly, very efficiently, it means that your latency, if you're on the 2.4, for example, and you start to get interference, there's channel interference, or too many other people coming on there and it starts to slow down, you're able to very quickly switch onto one of the other frequencies and be able to get that latency down and get better throughput, better speed. Okay. Spatial streams, we spoke about that, being able to do up to 16. I think, the graphic actually speaks better than I can speak about this, showing all of those simultaneous connections that you're able to pass data over. I like some of the icons around here. We've even got the drones on here and all sorts of things. So it just shows you the way that things are being used, that the Wi-Fi is being used in this day and age, and how the addition of being able to have multiple simultaneous connections is absolutely a benefit. So that's kind of like a quick overview of Wi-Fi 7. But what we should do, of course, is look at when we compare Wi-Fi 7 against Wi-Fi 6. And the easiest way to do that, of course, is actually in a test, in a real test, in a real home. One thing we don't like to do, although I appreciate there's obviously the requirement for it in certain scenarios, we don't particularly like doing testing in anechoic chambers because not many people live in an anechoic chamber nowadays. They live in real homes, and so that's where they're really going to be using the Wi-Fi. And so to do that testing in a real home is a far better test from our point of view. That's our opinion. So we did a test of some Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7 devices. The Wi-Fi 6 devices, as you can see here from this label, Wi-Fi 6 was a gateway, a router, plus 2 APs. Yeah, whereas Wi-Fi 7, we just used a 2-pack. So one router and one mesh system. And you can see them where they're actually laid out on here. The gateway being the device down here on the ground floor, and then the mesh devices labelled in the green circles. So when it came down to the Wi-Fi 7, we just had this one, whereas with Wi-Fi 6, we had both 1 and 2, as mentioned here. Okay. And then the test points 1 to 6, you can see those in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, across the 3 floors of this townhouse. And just to give you a view of the results, this is what we actually see. This is using a mobile device, a OnePlus 11. For those of you who know that, it's an Android mobile. And we use this against a set of Wi-Fi 6 products, our own. We compared against our own, but also some competitors and their different variants. And then also with one of our Wi-Fi 7 devices. And you can see there that pretty much, when you're on the ground floor, close to it, position 1, as you saw on the map before, the difference, is that going to be, recognizable to the user? Probably not that much, 700 up to 900. There is a difference there from a technical perspective, but from a real use, probably not much. And the same in the download as well, you can see on this side. Where Wi-Fi 7 really starts to come into its own is when you start looking at range. Okay, yes, there's a greater headline speed, but it's at range. And you can see that probably, when you get to the second floor, so the top floor here, remembering, of course, that the Wi-Fi 7 only had one mesh unit, which was on the first floor, and Wi-Fi 6 had a mesh unit, an AP, on the second floor. But the Wi-Fi 7 here absolutely outperforms everything else that's happening in Wi-Fi 6. And that's both in the upload and download. So, of course, what this really means is, yes, of course, there's headline speed, but Wi-Fi 7 is offering that speed consistently across the whole home environment. And this is really what we mean when we're talking about whole home coverage. You can say, well, I've got Wi-Fi in this room down here at Wi-Fi 6. Yes, you have. And actually, that's pretty decent. That's not bad speeds. That's okay. But it's not the consistent speed across the whole of the building. Yeah, across the whole environment, a similar sort of speed, throughput. So it's not just about connectivity. It's and having a signal. It's having a signal that can be used to do what you want to do in the way of all the streaming and all the different things. You saw the big disc there with all on the 16 spatial streams, the different devices, because there's so many different devices that we actually use in the home nowadays that require decent bandwidth in all corners of the room or all corners of the home. So just to give you a view on some of our Wi-Fi routers or Wi-Fi 7 routers and mesh devices. So the important thing that we should tell you is we were the first to release a commercially available Wi-Fi 7 product into the consumer market. And you can see the various different types of product we have here. Yes, we're kind of concentrating more on these devices today, the Aginet products, which are, as mentioned, are for ISPs. But we do have other routers there, specific to the different environments where you want to use those, for gaming or those sort of things. So, but we were the first to release Wi-Fi 7 onto the market. So, we have a really good pedigree in Wi-Fi. I should just mention as well that for the last 12 years, TP-Link have been #1 in Wi-Fi shipped globally for the last 12 years consecutively. So we're pretty good at Wi-Fi. We know what we're doing. And so I think you can see that from some of these other products and solutions here. So there's obviously some very, very nice heavy duty looking type routers that we've got. These are real high spec routers. We've got tri-band 4x4x4, as you can see on there, also with a 10 gig Ethernet WAN capability capability, and also an SFP cage there, so you can put in an XGS PON SFP module to go direct fiber into this product if you wanted to. It's got voice ports on it as well, but along with having a 10 gig WAN capability, we've also got a 10 gig LAN capability, along with 3 other 2.5 gig LAN. So this is a very high spec, high performing product, which is capable of delivering very high speed multi gig, both on LAN and on WAN. And that's kind of like an interesting point here. And I've got a slide coming up, which, we'll talk about that a little bit further. So there is not just obviously a single router, there's a portfolio of routers, and all the ones you can see on here, these are all tri-band. They're all different variants of tri-band, either 2x2x2s or 4x4x4s or 4x4x2s, and various different WAN capabilities as well. You can see like a little brother of the big one this is the big one I was just showing just now, but as I say, it's like a little brother here, and this is a 2x2x2, and that's a 2.5 gig WAN, but also a 2.5 gig LAN to match that up on the other side, along with voice ports. So as I say, tri-band 2x2x2. But then there's a few other different ones you can see here. I'm not going to go and read all the specs to you. I'm sure you can do this, and this webinar slides will be available after this webinar, so you can certainly look back on that and have a look at that yourself. But you can see there's quite a portfolio of products there. And as I say, these are all Wi-Fi 7 tri-band. We also have some Wi-Fi 7 dual band products. So for the markets where maybe tri-band is not a requirement, it's not necessarily always a requirement in the smaller environment for having tri-band. It's only a dual band requirement, and you can see some of the products here that are actually useful for this, like the EB430V. This is a new product. This should be coming available next quarter, so it's the beginning of next year. And a dual band 4x4, and again, more so that multi-gig 2.5 gig WAN and LAN ports as well, along with voice. And then from there we go into the mesh type of products. And this product itself here is actually exactly the same spec as that initial router I showed you on the Wi-Fi 7, the real high spec job. This is exactly the same specs. The only difference between that device and this device, because this can be used as a router, absolutely it can, but this device does not have a voice port. Our mesh products don't have voice ports. However, they can absolutely be used as routers. So you don't have to have a different type of product for a router and then a different for a mesh. You can mix and match. They'll all work with each other, or they can all work as a set of products themselves. So you could have 3 of these, for example, 1 as your router and 2 of them as your mesh environment. But again, this is a very high spec one, 4x4x4 tri-band, 10 gig on the WAN, 10 gig on the LAN, SFP cage if required. And again, little brother of that one, same concept as you saw on the routers just now. This is a tri-band still, but a 2x2x2, and with a 2.5 gig WAN and LAN. But again, this is a mesh device, does not have voice ports. But again, this could be used with the product you saw just now. So again, you can mix and match them. And then lastly, on the Wi-Fi 7 products, just to show you, we've also got a dual band 2x2 device. Again, can be used as a router or a mesh device. And actually, we're seeing a number of ISPs taking the previous product, so this product here, as the main router product, and using these as the mesh devices. Again, providing dual band 2x2 capability around the home, back to that tri-band 2x2x2 product. So why do we feel the need for speed? We were talking about it earlier. I was talking about earlier about all the different devices you have around the home now, and the number of devices that are absolutely increasing exponentially when you look at it. I think at the moment they're saying that on average, in the average home, there's about 15 devices in the current state, whereas by 2028 they believe that's going to quadruple up to around about 60 devices. I would look at that and say, I think 15 is a little bit low. That's market data, not from us. That's from one of the industry market analysis companies. I would have said there's probably more than 15 now. I think I've certainly got more than 15 in my home. When you think about it, with smart TVs, you don't just have one in your room, in your lounge. Your kids have got one each, and they're streaming. They've then got their gaming consoles, and they've got their pads, and they've got their phones. So if you start pulling all those together, I think the number is more into the 25, 30-ish now already at this stage. So that ability for Wi-Fi 7 with multiple streams to be able to connect multiple devices running simultaneously, plus the reach and range of Wi-Fi 7 to provide high-speed Wi-Fi in rooms around the home consistently and effectively is all starting to become absolutely the requirement. You can see why Wi-Fi 7 is absolutely there as a need. And of course, we're all doing all sorts of different things there. As I mentioned, gaming, but the demand on the bandwidth from social media and homeworking is becoming a very important one these days, of course. And having that ability to have a good Wi-Fi connection, so you're able to work from home. Everything's being done with video these days, video meetings. So the ability to have the speed to cope with that is very important. But also, as I mentioned earlier, with the home users app, the Aginet app, the ability to be able to do your quality of service and make sure if you're home working, you reserve that bandwidth for your homework, so that when Johnny comes home from school, and thinks, right, that's it, I'm going gaming, and starts chewing up all your bandwidth, you don't want him impacting your work from home experience. And so, lastly, on the Wi-Fi 7 part here, we've already said about the 16 special streams. We understand the importance there. Multi-link operation, absolutely, very important for being able to combine those frequencies together, or even hop from frequency to frequency seamlessly and quickly to enable redundancy and also ensure low latency. But also, as I mentioned, the mesh coverage and roaming, very important for people's way they operate today. They don't stand in one place when they're looking at their tabs. They move from room to room. It's just the nature of operate today. And so Wi-Fi 7 is absolutely important. So I think that's probably about it. There's 10 minutes left on the time. I could go into other conversations about other products, but I think we'll leave it there, and we'll save the other part for another time. Thank you for attending. Hope you found it useful, and I open up the floor to any questions or anything that anybody wants to ask. Let's see if we can answer for you now. Thanks very much. Okay, we've got one hand up. Bear with us whilst we just read this question.
He hasn't put anything in the chat. We've got a few in the Q&A. Oh, do Aginet and Armada work together?
Okay, Aginet and Armada working together. No, they don't. Not from a management platform. Of course, they're all IP sense, and then yes, you could. But from a management perspective, there are two distinct management environments. Armada has its own management platform, because don't forget, that's more a case of like an IT network management type of solution. And so you're managing your network environment from that perspective, whereas the Aginet is an ISP, so it's the ISP managing the user's home network. So if that makes sense. So however, there is discussions that we may need to bring some of this together to be able to create a very powerful environment. And so it's something that we're looking at, but it's certainly not there today. So I hope that answers that question.
Cool.
And then I think we've got another one.
We've got a few more in the Q&A as well.
Okay.
I'll just get to the next one. Are there plans to include public speed test server like OK/LA?
Yeah,
test?
Okay, so you can absolutely aim the TAUC system at Oakland. What we would recommend, though, as an ISP, what you want to be testing to is you want to be testing to your own speed test server. So it's very simple to set one up. We have actually got instruction guides and everything to enable you to do that. A very simple thing to do, because if you can set it up on your network, your environment, when you run a test from TAUC, it is then properly testing your service and not going off to something else out there in the internet, which you never know at the time that you schedule that test to be done. It may be not being used very heavily, so you get a really good result, or there may be some latency issues because you've got loads of people running tests at the same time on a public one. So even though Ookla is capable, it's possible, we don't recommend that. We recommend building your own speed test server. It gives a much better true result of your ISP service you're delivering. Okay,
cool. Thanks for the questions, guys. We've got a few in the Q&A as well that we've missed. One from Tim. I need the 5G CPs to work in TAUC. They're not currently in there. The NR210 outdoor doesn't connect to TAUC, but is sold as an Aginet/TAUC device. When will this work in TAUC?
Okay, so all of these devices are being worked on to bring them into the TAUC platform if they're not already there. I didn't actually, if I carried on with the slides here, we start to talk about some of the 5G products, and some of those are Wi-Fi 7 with 5G. So the newer products are absolutely on board already into TAUC on the 5G, but yes, some of the existing current products are not there. We are looking at those to bring the Aginet agent on board those. Unfortunately, I haven't got a timing for you. I can't tell you that. I know Leo is probably online, and it's something he can take away, and hopefully we'll come back to you with some information when that may be possible, when that's going to happen.
Okay. I think we've covered the speed test service with Ookla already. See, Tim's got a few more questions. The speed test in TAUC needs work. This is unreliable and doesn't report correct speeds. What is being done to fix this?
Okay, that's an interesting one, Tim. Not aware of that myself. I don't know if, I'd say again, Leo's online. I'm not sure whether he's aware of that. He can certainly take that up and talk internally to find out what's going on with that. What I would urge you to do, Tim, is please send us an email with what your findings, if you haven't already, so that we can actually look into that and understand what the situation is, to establish why that may be the case.
And then Tim is asking about the TAUC licenses. Is there a plan to change how the licenses are paid for? At the moment, buying a license for a year at a time doesn't seem to be good for cash flow. ISPs that have such low margins. Why isn't TAUC free?
Okay, but why isn't TAUC free? You know, I asked the Mercedes garage that about my car. I said, why is my car not free? But yeah, so you know, hey, it's a sophisticated management platform. It offers a lot. So yes, it's not free. There is licensing. As for the way you actually pay for it, a year up front, or paying for it by a year, well, actually that's not necessarily the case. You can be invoiced for it on a monthly basis. So not quite sure if I'm understanding. Maybe I've missed something on your question there, Tim. Whether that was whether I'm understanding it right, because it's absolutely not the case. You can do it monthly or quarterly, in fact, depending on how it works best for you. But yeah, I'm sorry, it's a chargeable thing, and it will continue to be so. Yeah, we're always looking at pricing. We're always trying to understand what the market is, what it requires, what it needs, and how it sits. And so, you know, it's absolutely, it may be a case that we work on the pricing there a bit, but that's a TBA.
Okay. Then Tim's got a couple more questions. Haven't been able to get to grips with Aginet config, but only need to configure a handful of routers at a time. So batch isn't helpful. However, it seems the default configuration can only be saved once. What if later a customer has, or he says Internet Protocol configured via IP? Then if they reset, we need to configure via IP again. Can it be made so that the default config can be saved at any time?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I like that one, Tim. Well done for that. Well, obviously, I haven't got an answer for that. I don't know whether there's something we can do on that. Certainly a great question, and we'll take that one on board and internally and investigate that and see if there's anything can be done. I don't know if it can, but that's a good one. I like that. Let's see what we can do.
So last one, Tim, is it possible to disable the Wi-Fi on/off button found on many TP-Link routers?
I think it is, but I think I would have to refer to either Leo or one of the other technical guys online here that could actually answer that question. I don't know if they can answer it in the chat or whether we'll put something out there at a later point. But yeah, that would be a useful thing to do, to disable that, to stop people turning it on and off. I assume that's the reason why you would want to disable it. So yeah, let us take that on board and respond back for you on that.
Okay, I think that's all the questions finished for today. Are there any last ones?
And so, any other further questions? I think kind of got to the end of that, and we're kind of right upon the time, so it's timing's perfect. If not, then I guess we will shut this down, and just leaves me to say to you all, thank you again for attending. Really appreciate you sparing the time. Hope you found it useful. If there's any questions, please feel free to contact us with those. This webinar will be released out there for you to download and watch and keep if you really want to listen to me again. So without further ado, I wish you a good day, and we'll catch up with you again soon on the next one.